Love in the age of illusion. Love has always been difficult to define. It is spoken of as if it were timeless, unchanged by culture, untouched by progress, immune to the systems that shape human life. We describe it as pure, authentic, something that emerges naturally between two people. And yet, the way we experience love has never been independent of the world around us. Today, that world is saturated with images, algorithms, and endless choice. And so, quietly, almost imperceptibly, love has changed. In the past, connection was limited. You met people through proximity, through shared spaces, shared communities, shared time. There were fewer options, fewer comparisons, fewer expectations shaped by distant lives you could not see. Now connection is infinite. With a simple movement of your thumb, you are exposed to hundreds of faces, personalities, possibilities, each one presented as a potential, each one framed, curated, optimized to be desirable. What once required time now requires only attention. This creates a subtle shift. Love is no longer discovered, it is selected, and selection introduces a new mindset. You begin to evaluate, to compare, to wonder if something better might be one swipe away, not necessarily because you are dissatisfied, but because the system continuously reminds you that alternatives exist. This is the illusion of abundance. When possibilities are endless, commitment becomes fragile. Because choosing one person begins to feel like rejecting countless others. And even when you choose, a quiet question remains. Did I choose the best option? Love, which once required presence and patience, now competes with potential. At the same time, expectations have evolved. You are no longer comparing your relationship to those around you. You are comparing it to carefully constructed versions of love. Images, stories, and moments designed to appear perfect. Romance is filtered. Connection is edited. Emotion is displayed, not necessarily experienced. And so, reality begins to feel insufficient. Not because it lacks value, but because it cannot compete with illusion. A quiet dissatisfaction emerges, not always strong enough to be recognized, but present enough to be felt. You may care deeply for someone. You may share real moments, real connection, and yet something feels incomplete, as if something is missing. But what is missing is not always within the relationship. Sometimes it is within expectation, because the idea of love has been shaped by things that were never meant to represent it fully. This creates a tension between what is real and what is imagined. Real love is often quiet. It is not constant excitement. It is not perfection. It is not an endless sequence of meaningful moments. It is ordinary. It includes silence, misunderstanding, routine. It requires effort, attention, presence. But illusion is effortless. It offers intensity without complexity, connection without vulnerability, desire without responsibility. And so the two are constantly compared. When reality feels heavy, illusion feels light. When reality feels slow, illusion feels immediate. And over time, the mind begins to lean toward what is easier, not because it is better, but because it is more stimulating. This is where something important is lost. Because love cannot exist fully in illusion. It requires presence. It requires time. It requires two people who are not perfect, choosing to remain, even when the experience is not ideal. But presence is becoming rare. Attention is divided. Moments are interrupted. Connection is filtered through screens. You may be physically with someone, but mentally elsewhere. Comparing, thinking, imagining alternatives, and this creates distance. Not visible, but felt. Over time, relationships begin to reflect this. Less depth, more uncertainty, a tendency to move on rather than move through. Because moving on is easier than understanding. And yet beneath all of this, the desire for real connection remains. People still want to be seen, to be understood, to be valued for who they are, not for how they appear. But to experience that kind of love, something must shift. Not externally, but internally. You must begin to see the illusion, to recognize how expectation has been shaped, to understand that what is presented as ideal is often incomplete. Because once you see that clearly, comparison begins to lose its power. You no longer measure love against something artificial. You begin to experience it for what it actually is. Not perfect, not constant, but real. And reality, when fully seen, does not need to compete with illusion. It stands on its own, because love was never meant to be optimized. It was meant to be lived.